but maybe I'll ask it this in another way. What is actually being done and solved to have greater protection for wage theft between the first application to the third application? And will this ordinance actually do what we need to do in order to seek those protections? Because it seems to me that it's a lot of duplicate work, but maybe I'm just not understanding this properly.
And Mr. Milton, maybe I'll jump in here and try to address that particular question. The proposed ordinance, as it's written, what it requires is one additional disclosure, and that disclosure is that if the contractor or subcontractor has any adverse determinations against it made by any federal or state labor related pronouncement, that has to be disclosed. And if it's not disclosed, there's the right for the city to revoke the license of the folks doing the work. So it's an additional disclosure to identify whether or not a contractor doing work has any current or outstanding labor violations on record by a regulatory agency against it. It's not a current requirement that we explicitly require. And if this is approved and gets put into effect, that's the additional step, the additional notification that the city would receive.
Okay. And so again, I'm going to go back to, supporting this position, especially as it relates to, I'm going to call it more larger commercial type enterprises. But if I read this correctly, and again, correct me if I'm wrong here, this would also apply to me if I'm actually working on a balcony renovation.
Councilmember Carroll.
Great, thank you, Mayor. So I guess we're talking about possibly, I have one ordinance on the dais with red line. I was given a second one on the red line. I mean, I guess let me just, before we just did this piece, let me just ask the attorney this question. So if you hire a company to replace your roof, and on the day work begins and 8 guys show up in 5 trucks and they start working, and then later in the day another truck starts and takes away the waste from the old roof. And what is the duty of a homeowner to inspect the worker's identity, legal status, relationship to the original contractor under what has been written and redlined and put on my, put here on my little seat at the dais, 30 minutes ago?
It puts the onus on the applicant. A lot of the times the applicant is the contractor, it's not the actual homeowner, but taking your hypothetical, let's say it's the homeowner that serves as the applicant on the project. It then puts the onus on the homeowner, the applicant, to provide verification as to each contractor and subcontractor or companies associated with its principals, whether any pending and or previous enforcement actions for any federal or state labor violations or paid any penalties to a governmental agency related to violations of the California Labor Code. So it does put the onus on the applicant to provide that verification, which means that they in turn need to be looking to the subs to get whatever verification can be provided by them.
Okay. So I guess from my point, just from my perspective, I think I'd like a little more information on this. I find it a little, and I respect, and I am absolutely also completely agree with the mayor. I am absolutely against wage theft as well. I echo Councilmember Kim's comments. But I feel like we as a city council, certainly myself as a council member, I'm briefed on things that are a lot more minor than, 10 pages of changing the laws of the city of Irvine that are being redlined and placed on the dais tonight. So maybe it's my professional background as someone that writes these things for a living, but I'm really not comfortable with pressing yes or agreeing to anything tonight here that's been redlined quickly with substantive changes, and I have to sit here and ask the attorney who has to tell this attorney who's acting as a council member tonight what things actually mean, It seems like it could be overly broad. It seems like it could pick up unintended consequences. I appreciate the sentiment, but I think, for this council member, a little more homework is required here. So I guess I'd like to move that we continue this item until we have public works and city managers, whoever you think, Mr. Chi is most appropriate to provide a report on what the enforcement issues are, what this seeks to address, and particularly how it would solve the problem with regard to, picking up unintended consequences like somebody doing a home renovation in Northwood or something like that. So that would be my motion.
Councilmember Carroll,
Yes.
if I can